Bonjour à tous. Bonjour Thierry.
Salut Carole, ça va? Bien dormi?
Moyen, mais bon, je vais pas en parler là tout de suite.
Vous, ça va?
Ouais, ça n'a pas l'air très chaud encore. On n'est pas tout à fait réveillés, j'ai l'impression.
J'ai juste une petite question, Carole. Qui n'était pas là hier?
Mais on recommence tout en fait.
Donc on va pouvoir radoter, vous vous en rendrez pas compte en fait.
Prends les fiches d'hier. Bon, alors une nouvelle page blanche est à écrire. C'est vraiment ce que l'on va faire aujourd'hui puisqu'il est question d'inspiration et de création. Alors hier, on était plus dans le conceptuel. Aujourd'hui, on va être beaucoup plus dans le concret. On va voir toutes ces entreprises qui osent se lancer et on espère que ça va vous donner envie à vous aussi de vous lancer.
Oui, alors justement, on va commencer dans le vif du sujet. On va commencer avec un homme qui est le père du design thinking. C'est Tim Brown. Alors malheureusement, Tim n'est pas avec nous aujourd'hui.
Il est en Chine.
Ouais, il est en Chine. Vous savez, c'est un peu là où ça se passe. Donc on va écouter Tim Brown pour quelques minutes et on se retrouve immédiatement après avec Carole.
Allez, c'est parti.
À tout de suite.
Hi, I'm Tim Brown, and I'm a designer and the CEO of Ideo. I guess the question of what does inspiration and creativity mean to me, I think it's the capacity we have to solve the kinds of challenges that society is offering up to us today. And it requires something that we would call creative confidence, the ability to have new ideas and then the confidence to go act on them and make them happen in the world. Which it means that creative people have to be both optimistic and they have to be curious. And we use our curiosity to explore the world and to ask the kinds of questions that lead us to interesting creative solutions. And indeed, if you look behind all of the best and most interesting creative ideas, what you generally find is a really interesting question. So, I mean, an example of that in our own history is quite some time ago. Ideo was at a kind of transition point. We were struggling with a question, which was a result of something that happened back in the early 2000s, which is the dot-com crash here in Silicon Valley. And we were back then we were product designers, and we spent most of our time working with interesting technology companies, which had started off back several years before, doing things like the first mouse for the early Macintosh computers and the first laptop. So we'd been working on these kinds of technology problems, and then the dot-com crash happened in the early 2000s, and a lot of that work went away. And so we found ourselves asking a question that we'd never asked before, really, which was, well, what's design good for that we've never used it for before, or that we don't use it for customarily? And another question, which was, well, what would it be like if we could somehow turn design into a movement? That was a slightly kind of ambitious question to be asking, and maybe a little bit arrogant even, but it seemed like it was a sort of an aspiration that was worthwhile. And that question is what led us to identifying this idea of design thinking as a way of applying design to a much broader range of problems than it had ever been applied to before, and even more importantly, inviting many more different kinds of people into the world of design to help us tackle and solve those problems and meet those challenges. So asking a question that was a new question for us led us to a solution, which was design thinking, that's really been at the foundation of all of our work for the last 15 or so years. And we think that design thinking is a really valuable tool when it comes to facilitating this idea of inspiration and creativity. It's at its kind of core, of course, human-centered. It's about tackling these kinds of challenges through the lens of human beings, by being curious about how they live their lives and about how we can make everybody's lives better, more interesting, more fulfilling, more rewarding, safer. It's also biased towards action, and it favors making, building things as a way of thinking, learning through making, prototyping. So instead of sitting back and considering possibilities forever, we just build stuff. And through building it, we learn about how good our ideas are, and we learn not to be too precious about our ideas, and that kind of fuels us forward. It's also collaborative and interdisciplinary, and I think that's something that perhaps the world of design and creativity hasn't necessarily embraced quite as much historically. We've tended to have this kind of mythology of the single creative genius at the source of all good ideas. And I do believe actually that individuals do play an important role in creativity, particularly when it comes to sort of editing ideas and having accountability of the final point of view, but not necessarily so much in the having of the most interesting and most valuable and the most sophisticated of ideas in the first place. And so that we find, as we wish to work on more and more of these kind of complex problems, whether it be healthcare or education or the way that our cities are going to be in the future or the way our governments work, that takes the collaboration of many different disciplines with many different perspectives and many different creative capacities. And then, finally, it's iterative. I mean, in other words, speed matters, and learning through a succession of cycles is how we get to the best ultimate solutions. We rarely have the best idea right at the beginning. It evolves. It's why prototyping is so important. But this notion of learning through iterations, it's why things like sprints and deep dives are more effective than long, slow, drawn-out processes. Finally, I would say design thinking is all about balancing three really important factors. What's desirable in terms of what human beings need and want in the world? What's feasible? What can we make? What can technology achieve? What is sustainable from a business perspective? And while we try with design thinking to integrate all of those, as I said at the beginning, we start with this focus on meeting the needs of human beings.
Merci Tim, bisous from Paris.